At Bain, we've been studying how companies grow for over 40 years, and we think there's something fundamental going on with the company's life cycle. Every company starts with a huge amount of founder mentality. They're an insurgent, and I'll come on to define that in a moment. But as they grow, it's almost like they accept a trade-off. We'll benefit from scale and scope even at the cost of our initial culture. And the problem then is, as an incumbent, there's only one place to go, which is to drift south into a struggling bureaucracy. So let me try to make that clear. We talk about the fact that companies start as insurgents, where they have a huge amount of founder mentality. Well, what do I mean by that? Founder mentality starts with the founder is obsessed with the front line. They can't even think about business without thinking about the front line, their actions and their behaviors. And so everything is about frontline orientation and therefore the customer. Secondly, the founder mentality is all about owner mindset. Everybody feels they're an owner. They hate bureaucracy. Everything is about a bias to action, and every dollar is their dollar, and the whole organization feels it. But almost most importantly, founder-led companies start as insurgents. They're at war against their industry on behalf of some underserved customer segment. So everybody in the company can answer the single question of why we exist. We exist to help that one customer against the industry that is underserving them. That's a lot to lose, but size is huge. When founders look up at incumbents, they have huge size envy. Well, what do you gain along that path? Well, the first of which is you gain leadership economics. When founders look at the incumbents, they say, who wouldn't want to be a leader? You have pricing power, everybody knows your name, everybody knows your brand, and you can compete with that. Secondly, you have learning systems. You've learned more as an incumbent than anybody else in your industry. You're an expert on almost any topic. You can leverage that. And finally, you have market power and influence. You can influence regulatory affairs. You can shape the rules of the game of the industry in which you compete. So incumbency becomes a great thing. You lose a lot of cultural elements as you grow, but the default path up to incumbency seems good. But the problem is then you've lost the cultural elements that make you begin to die in complexity and become a struggling bureaucracy. So a lot of what we're trying to do as CEOs is to talk through that path and the forces that are working against them so they can come to a better place. Well, with insurgents, what we talk about is the westward winds. What is going to make you lose all those cultural elements? Well, the first westward wind, to be frank, is just the unscalable founder. Sometimes founders don't grow with their companies and can't be part of the journey going forward. We're very careful not to say the founder. We talk about the founder mentality. A second westward wind is the lost voices of the front line. As companies grow, they start with everybody around the table as a member of the front line, including the founder. But then you add all the functional specialists, you add head of marketing, head of legal, and then even the people that are frontline oriented become people that manage the front line, the span breakers. And pretty soon nobody in the executive committee actually is in the front line of the organization anymore. A third westward wind is just the erosion of accountability. We started feeling every dollar was ours. We were owners. But over time, we're bureaucrats managing numbers as opposed to owners managing our own bank account. And the final westward wind is this notion that revenue grows faster than talent. By definition, in the early growth of a founder-led company, the heroes are doing everything, but eventually you have to bring in professionals and systems. The danger is those systems become more important to the heroes, and you lose the very people you need to retain. So that explains how insurgents end up drifting towards incumbency, the westward winds. But let's now talk about what happens to incumbents. It's a great place to be, but you don't stay there. Then we have what we call the southward winds. The first of those is simply the complexity doom loop. We know the next percent of revenue growth is far more complex for you than the first. And you try to deal with that complexity by organizing differently, and that creates organizational complexity. Then you try to manage that complexity through IT systems, and all you do is create process complexity, and pretty soon growth equals complexity, and everybody is dying in it. Another southward wind is the curse of the matrix. We're fans of the matrix. The whole point of organizational design is to create conflict with different parts of the organization trying to accomplish different things. But as a company grows, nobody resolves those conflicts, and that lack of conflict resolution is destroying the soul of your people. A third southward wind is just the fragmentation of the customer experience. It used to be that one person could solve a customer problem. Now it takes 13 or 14 people spread across the organization. When you can't solve customer problems, you get cynical. And that begins to do the final thing. The southward wind is the death of the nobler mission. that pretty soon you've lost the sense of insurgency. No one in the company can answer the question of why we exist. And so that's our mission by really understanding founder mentalities. If you understand the forces working against you, you can begin to proactively deal with it. So we're working with insurgents to say, how do you deal with these westward winds, and how can you just continue the journey north? With incumbents and struggling bureaucracies, it's more about a path to renewal. How do we recover our mojo, get back this sense of founder mentality, answer the question for our people of why we exist? And the final thing is we use creative partnerships. How can insurgents and incumbents work together to get the best of both organizations so we can do something new and nobler for our customers?